Hey, Carrie, what are you doing there? Oh, mother-in-law, I was just going to the restroom. What are you talking about? You are an outsider, so you should go outside. Our toilet is off limit. Left speechless by my mother-in-law's sudden statement. This day, we visited my husband's family home for the first time since we got married. We are supposed to be treated to a meal along with my husband, but suddenly, I was receiving childish harassment from my mother-in-law. Thinking back, I had a vague feeling that my mother-in-law did not think highly of me since we first met for the marriage introduction. But I never thought she would go so far as to harass me in such a childish manner. Having no choice, I left the house to look for a nearby restroom, unaware that my mother-in-law would soon find herself in a difficult situation. My name is Carrie. I'm 28 years old. I'm living happily every day with my newlywed husband. My husband is 32, 4 years older than me, and his name is Max. He works at a major company and holds a position even at a young age. He is a promising and excellent husband. We met at a so-called group dating party. But it was a drinking party I reluctantly participated in just to make up the numbers. I didn't expect to find the one. But I met Max at such a gathering and even married him, so nobody knows what happened to life. That being said, it would be a lie to say that there are no issues in this married life. Although I'm usually living a happy life, the truth is, I have a concern that I can't share with my husband. That concern is the existence of my husband's mother. I, who am not very well regarded by mother-in-law. I realized this from the first time I met my mother-in-law. It was when we went to his parents' house for our marriage introduction. Dad, Mom, this is Carrie, who I intended to marry. Max introduced me to his parents. I wanted to make a good impression, but contrary to that desire, I was too nervous to speak well. However, my father-in-law noticed this and smiled at me kindly. Nice to meet you, Carrie. Thank you for always being great to my son. Oh no, your son is the one who always takes good care of me. Ha ha ha, what a lovely young lady. You don't have to be so modest. Max is lucky to have you. No, that's not true at all. Max, watching the conversation between me and his mother, smiles. But I noticed the figure of his mother, who hadn't changed her expression at all next to him. When our eyes unexpectedly meet, my mother-in-law forces a smile towards to me. Her voice when addressing me was overly gentle. I'm also thrilled. It's wonderful to have a lovely girl, like Carrie coming to be our daughter-in-law. I'm flattered, even from my mother-in-law. Ah, Carrie, can you help me make some tea? I'd like to chat with just the two of us. Of course, let me assist you. Despite Max saying, You can just sit, it's fine. I couldn't just sit there in front of my mother-in-law. Wanting to leave a good impression, I was eager to be proactive in situations like this. So, I followed my mother-in-law to the kitchen. However, as soon as we were alone, my mother-in-law's expression turned instantly cold. That expression, it changed in an instant, enough to instill fear. Fearfully, I spoke to my mother-in-law. Mother-in-law,
You
make me sick. Don't casually call me mother-in-law. Sick? You probably tricked my son with your charms or something, didn't you? I hate women who pretended to be cute like you. That's not true. I truly love Max. You're misunderstanding, mother-in-law. You're after his money, aren't you? It's shameless how you're clinging to Max just because he works for a top-tier company. Wait, please, you're misunderstanding. Please listen to me, mother-in-law. Mother-in-law refused to listen to my denial. I was unable to do anything but stand there. In the end, my mother-in-law brewed the tea by herself. Then I realized she had only called me into the kitchen to insult me. When my mother-in-law finished preparing the tea, she turned to me and said, "I'll never accept a woman like you as Max's wife. Please listen to my story, please. I will never accept you. Your words aren't even worth the listening to. But I'll pretend to accept you in front of Max." With that, my mother-in-law, carrying the tea she'd prepared, headed to the living room. By the time we returned to the living room, my mother-in-law had already reverted to her previous demeanor. I was so anxious about my mother-in-law's attitude that I couldn't focus on the rest of the conversation. And on the way home, Max, seeming a bit troubled, asked me this. Carrie, did something unpleasant happen?" "Huh? Why do you ask?" "Well, you're usually smiling, but today your expression was stiff." "Maybe I was just tired because I've been nervous all day. Sorry." "I'm sorry. That makes sense. Let's relax when we get home." On the way home, Max bought me my favorite fast food. He smiled and said, "Let's eat this together when we get home." Desperate, I forced a smile. I couldn't just say, "Your mother hates me." In the end, I couldn't tell Max anything until we got married. But that was when the real hell began. At Max's request, I quit my job when we got married and became a housewife. One day, while I was doing housework and watching TV, my cell phone rang. Who could it be? It's a number I don't recognize. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, but I didn't recognize the number. It wasn't blocked, so I decided to answer the call. "Hello?" "Hello, is this Carrie?" "Huh? Mother-in-law, is that you?" Suddenly, my mother-in-law was on the phone. As soon as I heard her voice, I was at a loss for words. The terror from before came rushing back. My mother-in-law sighed and said to me, "Even after all my words that make you back off, you actually went through with the marriage." "I truly love Max, so I'm sorry." "You are really persistent. You've become a housewife to live freely on Max's money, haven't you? Either way, I won't accept this." "It's because Max said he wanted me to stay home. That's not the case." "You are nothing but a gold-digging parasite. It's outrageous." "Mother-in-law, that's not." "In that case, just break up with my son already. Unless you don't want to hear any more from me." My mother-in-law threw those words at me and hung up the phone abruptly. Amid the sound of the disconnected call, I was tormented by indescribable emotions. Why can't they understand? I didn't marry Max for his money. It's because I genuinely love him. I wanted to build a good relationship with my mother-in-law too. I knew that my mother-in-law doted on Max. It was clear from her actions and words. But to be antagonized to this extent because of that. Ever since then, my mother-in-law had been calling me frequently. Moreover, those calls would always come in during the daytime on weekdays. In other words, she targeted the time when I was definitely alone at home, without my husband who's at work. I have no idea how to deal with this anymore. Of course, I can't discuss it with my husband. All I can do is endure. And then, as the new year arrived and January was nearing its end, a day came when I was heading to my in-laws' house with my husband. My husband caught a contagious disease at a year-end party, and we both ended up getting infected. So we couldn't make our original New Year's homecoming. Eventually, we postponed our planned homecoming and couldn't leave the house at the start of the year. And today is finally the day for our first visit to the in-laws' house since we got married. However, my father-in-law, who has been on a business trip since the day before yesterday, apparently won't return until tomorrow. That means only the mother-in-law is home. My steps grew heavy just from the fact. Upon our arrival, as I pressed the intercom, my mother-in-law welcomed us with a broad smile. "Welcome, Max, Carrie. I've been waiting for you." "Mother-in-law, hello." "We've been in touch occasionally, but it's been a while, Carrie. After all, it's better to meet in person." "Yes." Although she said that the actual contact from my mother-in-law is more than occasional. Almost every day, I'm nagged with her subtle jabs for nearby an hour during the weekday afternoons. But in front of Max, my mother-in-law continues to play the good mother-in-law. She seems to not want the truth to be known at any cost. "I dread what's coming," thought Carrie, who was scheduled to stay overnight from today. Amid all this, the mother-in-law said to my husband, "I hate to ask, but could Max do some shopping?" "Sure, but why the shopping?" "Actually, I forgot to pick up the cake I have reserved for today. And also, I forgot to buy some ingredients for tonight's dinner." "Well, I have a car, so it's okay. But you've forgotten too much." "Sorry about that, but Carrie, please relax at home." My mother-in-law, with a grin on her face, looking at me. That smile, seemingly hiding something, was not a pleasant one. Should avoid going with my husband, as I might get scolded later. Feeling this, I decided to quietly wait at my in-laws' house. While I was sitting on the sofa, waiting for my husband to return, I got up to go to the bathroom when my mother-in-law went to the kitchen. I had asked my husband where the toilet was before, so I headed to the washroom relying on that memory. It was the moment I opened the toilet door that I felt a presence behind me. "Carrie, what are you doing there?" When I turned around, my mother-in-law was standing there like a warrior statue. Her expression was not calm. She clearly looked irritated. To avoid further upsetting my mother-in-law, I responded in an unoffensive way. "Mother-in-law, I'm sorry for getting up without permission. I'm asking what you're doing there. Answer the question. I just came to use the restroom. Oh, what are you talking about, Carrie? You are banned from using the toilet. Wait, what do you mean? It's not pleasant to have a stranger use the toilet, is it? You, an outsider, should do it outside. My mother-in-law laughing quietly, looking at my situation. In front of her, I felt a sensation of cooling down from the top of my head. It's useless to try to understand her any further. I finally came to realize that I can't believe I'm being subjected to such childish harassment. I knew she didn't like me, but this is a shock. There is no way I can build a family relationship, even if I'm just her daughter-in-law. With such a person, I can't take it anymore. I understand. With that, I stormed out of my in-laws' house. However, I had no idea where the convenience store or supermarket was. I was unfamiliar with the area. I could endure for now, but there was no way I could hold it until my husband returned. Thinking so, I aimlessly walked around the town until I saw a station. I quickly entered the public toilet and did my business. When I came out,
Curry?
I heard a voice from somewhere, but looking around, I didn't see anyone I knew. Then,
Over here!
my father-in-law came running towards me. Huh? I thought you were coming back tomorrow.
I heard that you and Max were coming to our house, so I finished my business early and hurried back.
I see.
But why were you using the station toilet when we have one at our house?
Well, that's because... Seeing me falter, my father-in-law seems to realize something. His smile from a moment ago disappeared, and he asked me a serious question.
I hate to think, but did my wife do something to you?
No, it's nothing like that.
Actually, I've been worried about this for a while. Even at our marriage meeting, your face was very dark when you returned from the kitchen. So, please tell me the truth.
Father-in-law! Before I knew it, I was sobbing at his kind words. I didn't care that there were people around, and I cried out loud. We sat on a nearby bench, and my father-in-law quietly waited until I stopped crying. When I had calmed down, I revealed to my father-in-law the various harassments I had received from my mother-in-law. Although my father-in-law seemed unable to suppress his irritation towards the end, he listened to my story without interruption. When I had finished telling everything, my father-in-law said this.
Let's end this today, Harry.
Huh? With that, I returned to my in-law's house with my father-in-law, who had hailed a taxi. My husband, who had already come home, seemed surprised at our combination.
Why is that here? And with Carrie? Work ended earlier than planned. More importantly, there is something important to talk about. A talk? Right now? Yeah, it's a very important conversation.
Soon after, at my father-in-law's call, everyone gathered in the living room. As soon as he started talking, My father-in-law raised his voice angrily at my mother-in-law.
How dare you bully your daughter-in-law in such a petty way? You are out of line.
What's this all about? What do you mean by daughter-in-law bullying?
I've heard all about the various harassments you've been doing to Carrie, so don't play dumb.
What are you talking about? I don't know anything about bullying my daughter-in-law.
Then, why was Carrie using the station toilet?
That because I was using the toilet at home.
We have 2 toilets at home, so one should have been available, right? It seems Max was out shopping.
My mother-in-law's expression distorted more and more with my father-in-law's words.
Mom, what's going on?
My father-in-law spoke to Max, whose face was filled with anger.
She had been harassing Carrie for a long time, just as I've explained.
What?
Pretending to be on good terms with Carrie, while bullying my wife behind the scene? What's that all about?
Max's anger was palpable. No, that's not it, Max. Please, just listen to me. My mother-in-law desperately tried to explain, but my husband continued to ignore her and refused to listen to her. Then my mother-in-law, finally losing her patience, turned her anger towards me and revealed her true colors. This is all your fault. Everything happened because of you.
Huh? My fault?
If you were a cuter and more obedient daughter-in-law, I wouldn't have needed to harass you. All of this happened because you married Max.
My husband and father-in-law were at a loss for words at my mother-in-law's unreasonable explanation. It seemed pointless to continue this further. Understanding this, I said to my mother-in-law very clearly,
If you are cuter and more obedient, that's not it. You just couldn't stand me marrying your beloved son. No matter who your son married, you'd have bullied them just the same. Isn't that right? You'd do the same no matter who your son married, wouldn't you? I just hate women like you. That's why it's not like that. Don't you see that you are about to lose your family because of your ridiculous mindset? Don't you realize that all of this is because of your actions? If that's the case, then you should live your life alone, abandoned by your family. You should experience that kind of life firsthand. Upon hearing my words, my mother-in-law fell to the floor, groaning. However, the family only looked on with indifference. No one offered a hand. And so, my husband and I decided to change our plan to stay overnight and headed home instead.
I'll take care of the rest.
I decided to take up my father-in-law's kindness. A few days later, I received a message from my father-in-law saying the divorce is finalized. It seemed that my mother-in-law had stubbornly refused and caused a scene over the divorce. Moreover, despite being a housewife, she had apparently borrowed a large sum of money from my father-in-law. When my father-in-law demanded that she either repay the money immediately or get a divorce, she chose to divorce. After the divorce, my mother-in-law, with nowhere to go, is now said to be working at a factory that provides accommodation. It must be a harsh life for a woman in her 60s, but this is undoubtedly her just desserts. There is absolutely no room for sympathy. The contacts from my mother-in-law have ceased, and peaceful days have returned to me. My relationship with my father-in-law is good, and I visit him regularly or go on trips with him and my husband. My father-in-law, who believed me at that time and took immediate action. Whether our meeting at the station was a coincidence or inevitable, I can only express my gratitude. I'll never forget this feeling of gratitude. From now on, I want to do my best to protect these happy days.